I don't know how they thought calling half the country Nazis was going to get them elected.
Yeah.
It actually brought more people to our side, and we're like, well, you know, we don't want to be a part of whatever they're doing.
And then, but if you call everyone a racist for everything, then people just don't care about being called racist anymore. And then, so they had to move on, and then it became Nazi. And now in South Africa, at least, now it's treason. And the new one now is misinformation.
Yeah, I don't think anybody trusts what these clowns are saying anymore. Nobody is going and calling each other on the phone and they're like, oh, did you hear what MSNBC said today? It's like, nobody cares. Nobody's watching it.
Yeah.
People care about what people like you are saying, what Joe Rogan is saying, what podcasters are saying. That's the new sphere of truth.
Why is it that you guys have an interest in South Africa, in what's happening there, and why are you so supportive of the Afrikaner people?
When you see the killings, when you see the brutality that's going on in South Africa, you can't stay silent. You can't stay silent. It's an injustice what they're doing to you and your people.
Yeah, I want to ask you, as a New Yorker and an American, to help our viewers who aren't American make sense of January 6th.
We can do it. We could do it ourselves if we need to. We could roll up our sleeves and we can get to work right now. And I think that's really been the story of the Afrikaners is we'll do it ourselves. Fine. We'll do it ourselves. We don't need you.
Yes.
Just leave us alone.
Stefano Forte, thanks for joining me. It's
Thank you very much.
great to see you now in Budapest.
Yes.
We met in New York not too long ago, and you recently became the president of the New York Young Republican Club. And maybe that's a good place to start, but I would like to ask you first and foremost how the New York Young Republican Club became so influential. Because I saw in a report it was listed as one of the most influential political clubs in New York, and I see you guys everywhere. So how did that happen?
I have to give credit to really my mentor and our current chairman, former President Gavin Wax. He really created a juggernaut. And I think in New York, there was a vacuum and a hole that was there. The culture is so woke and so politically correct and so Democrat that there was this hole for common sense people that just wanted to be a part of something. And Gavin filled that hole. He filled that space with good speakers, campaigns, deployments, and just these cultural things. I think the club became so successful because Gavin has a real mind for aesthetics. Just the aesthetics of the club, everything about it was just so well put together, so polished, down to the T. If you could see our group chats, it was very regimented how the posts were supposed to go out, the perception of what the club is to the world.
Oh, yes.
I think it became successful because people just wanted an alternative. There's a lot of people in New York that are not Democrats. And they want a club.
I think there were like 3 million people who voted Republican in New York.
Yes, yeah. I believe it was 3 million people. Trump did better than ever in New York for I think the last person that won New York was Nixon. And I think he outperformed Reagan in New York, I believe. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, Gavin created this juggernaut. And I really think that rightward shift of New York is due to the club. You look at the places where the club has really made a difference, like the Bronx, where we had our Trump rally. The Bronx shifted 20 points to the right this year. So the club has been influential. It's been huge. And I think the reason why is because we have people that really care about the club. It's not about titles. It's not about, getting paid. Nobody gets paid. We're all doing this on a volunteer basis. We just care, and I think people see that and I think they want to be a part of that.
And you had that massive Madison Square Garden rally last year. What was that like?
Well, I'll put you in the day in the life of what it was like. So I woke up at around 3 a.m. to get ready to go to Madison Square Garden. We got there at around 5 in the morning, and it was nonstop all day. From the moment we walked in, there was a line wrapped around the block. It was one of the best experiences I've ever had. Some of the volunteers in the front, we worked the VIP section, which was, well, not really VIP, but preferred seating section. and people were just they were clawing at each other to get in. So me and my friends were calling it the Battle of Madison Square Garden because we're holding people back from coming in. But it was an incredible experience, seeing the energy, the passion. Years past, we would have protests and we would have lining down the block, people with signs saying, oh, Trump's a fascist, Trump's this. This year, the protests were pitiful. Like, I felt bad for them. Yeah. I almost sent a couple of people to the other side of the street to be like, yo, go make them look good. There's not enough protesters here. But it was a really, really great experience. And we were all exhausted by the end of it. I mean, we all got a drink. We went home. We're like, we're done. This is over. But seeing the president go up on stage and knowing that we helped fill this storied arena, it was insane.
I think it was at MSNBC. It was very funny, and it's something that one should be angry about, but it's more funny than upsetting to me. When they had the coverage of the rally, and then they said, by the way, in 1939 or something, there was a rally here, which was a Nazi rally. And so as if Justin Bieber and Taylor Swift and all these people, they're sort of exempted from the Nazi association. But when it's Republican and when it's Trump, it's Nazi. It's bizarre.
It's so stupid. It's like every Knicks game is now a Nazi rally. If you walk into Madison Square Garden, it's a Nazi rally. It's really it's really dumb. But they were just desperate. Yeah. They were so desperate. By the end of the campaign, they were throwing anything that would stick, and just nothing stuck. Trump is Teflon Don. Nothing sticks. It falls right off his shoulder. Yeah. So it's just so stupid. I don't know how they thought calling half the country Nazis was going to get them elected. Yeah. It actually brought more people to our side, and we're like, well, we don't want to be a part of whatever they're doing. Yeah.
But it's interesting how that rhetoric has escalated, because it started, I guess, with the nihilist, you're a climate change denialist. Then at some point, people were accused of being authoritarian, and then it became racist. And then, but like the racism one, for example, if racism is serious, people don't want to be racist and people shouldn't be racist. And then, but if you call everyone a racist for everything, then people just don't care about being called racist anymore. Yeah. And then, so they had to move on, and then it became Nazi. And now in South Africa, at least, now it's treason. And the new one now is misinformation. So everything is misinformation. It's bizarre. It's like this media narrative. It keeps escalating. I don't know where it's going to end, but it's quite clear that what's happening as a result of this is just public trust in the media is collapsing. Is that your view in New York as well?
Yeah, I don't think anybody trusts what these clowns are saying anymore. Nobody is going and calling each other on the phone and they're like, oh, did you hear what MSNBC said today? It's like, nobody cares. Nobody's watching it. Yeah. People care about what people like you are saying, what Joe Rogan is saying, what podcasters are saying. That's the new sphere of truth, I would say. And in terms of, it's actually interesting. So you're talking about this kind of shift in the narrative, in terms of, oh, you're crazy. Oh, you're a racist. Oh, now treason. Yeah. Treason. It's treason. I would actually say treason is worse than calling somebody a racist, because treason here in the United States, you're convicted of treason. There's only one punishment for treason: death. Yeah. Right? So you're essentially saying, with racist, it's like, okay, we're going to shun you from society, and we're going to say, you can't be in polite society anymore. You're not invited to the cocktail parties. Yeah. But treason,
you have to be executed.
Yeah, they want to put you up against a wall and execute you. So I think we saw a little bit of that after January 6th here in the United States, right? We're like,
there in the United States.
Yeah, there in the United States. I'm so used to filming in New York. But there in the United States, yeah, during the January 6th stuff, it was like anybody that's a Republican. I remember it was like people were like whispering, anybody's a Republican, treason. You're treasonous. You want to overthrow the government, yes. Right? Like these, grandmothers who were stumbling into the Capitol somehow had the ability to overthrow the government, which is ridiculous. That narrative of treason leads us down a very, very slippery slope and a bad path. The racist thing, nobody believes you. We don't care. But the moment you start saying treason, you're assuming state power now is somehow going to get involved to protect itself. Yeah. It's somehow self-defense. Like you're trying to destroy my way of life. Therefore, you must be killed. Yep. Right? It's that, I think, is the scariest thing.
Yeah. I want to ask you, as a New Yorker and an American, to help our viewers who aren't American make sense of January 6th? Because, so I saw the rallies, I saw Trump speaking, he said, he encouraged people to move, and he said, be peaceful. And then there were some people who went into, was it a Capitol Hill?
Yeah, the Capitol building, yeah.
And now we're at the point where people start crying. Yesterday I saw someone crying, talking about January 6th, like that was the end of America. And what happened there, and why is it such a massive deal?
Yeah, so here's the thing, right? We're in Europe right now. The French stormed the Capitol building the moment gas prices tick up €1, right? Like this is something that Europeans do quite often, right? They get a little rowdy here in Europe. But in the United States, we've had a pretty stable republic for the most part. You know, we had our Civil War, but obviously there was some there's been the most recent times, it's pretty stable. On January 6th, let's go over what it wasn't. It was not worse than 9/11. I saw a lot of politicians saying this is worse than 9/11. It is not worse than 9/11. This is not a threat to democracy. This is not some sort of coup on the government, right? Now, there's a couple of different angles that we could go here. In terms of Trump, what he actually said, peacefully and patriotically, go to the Capitol. He didn't say go in there, storm the Capitol. He said peacefully and patriotically. You could watch the video. It's very apparent. But what actually happened day of, there's a couple of different angles that we could go here, right? There's the angle of they were essentially let in, which you can see. They were essentially let in. People were let in. There's the video of the guy with the horns who's yelling. He's got 2 security guards opening doors for him. Yeah. As he's going through. Did you see that video?
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
He's just walking through, right? This is not, they made it seem like people were going in there and it was an armed rebellion.
Breaking open the doors.
No, the only person that died was one of the people that walked into the Capitol who got shot in the head, right? I'm forgetting her name. God bless her, but she got shot in the head, right? This is not some sort of threat to democracy. This was not an attack on the U.S. government. It didn't warrant a whole commission to figure out what happened. It was very apparent what happened. There were groups within the FBI and some other intelligence organizations that essentially opened the doors for these people to walk in. Yeah. So they made it seem overseas and on some of the, state media, as I like to call it, CNN, state media, that this was some threat to democracy. This was not a threat to democracy. Everyone needs to calm down, right? If we're saying that this was a threat to democracy, then every time the leftists storm into a place, which is all the time, then it's a threat to democracy. Then they're treasonous. Then if we're gonna play that game, then everybody has to be included. Yeah.
So I want to segue to you guys and South Africa and the Afrikaners. I met Gavin and Nathan and the previous leadership of the club in, I think, 2022, which is 3 years ago, but it feels much longer than that. Actually here in Budapest at CPAC. And back then we wouldn't have expected or guessed that what's happening in South Africa would be such a big deal all over the world. And I have to say the Young Republican Club, the New York Young Republican Club, has done a lot to share our story with people in America. I've spoken there, I think, twice. And so I have the one question I want to ask you is why is it that you guys have an interest in South Africa, in what's happening there, and why are you so supportive of the Afrikaner people?
I think it's 2 reasons. One, it's a modern day injustice. We see this playing out in real time. It's very sad what's going on in South Africa. The killings. This is a government in South Africa. This is a government that has more race laws on the books than the height of apartheid. Yep. Right. So this is not. You were talking about this with Tucker, where we were talking about this kind of end of history, where it's like, oh, all injustices have been cleared, and now we can go on, and we're going to have this world where we can all sing Kumbaya together. It didn't really work out that way. And when you see the killings, when you see the brutality that's going on in South Africa, you can't stay silent. You can't stay silent. It's an injustice what they're doing to you and your people. And the second reason is, and I think that there's been a kinship that's been formed between the Afrikaners and the New York Young Republican Club. We're both these outposts and these bastions of sanity surrounded on all sides. And it's almost like we have, communications between the fronts, The club is very, very supportive. And we even have the Orania flag in our clubhouse. And I demanded, I said to our house chairwoman, I'm like, you are going to get it framed. Yes. We are going to put it in the clubhouse. And it's as soon as you walk in. So as soon as you walk in, you can't miss it. It's a reminder that we can do it. We could do it ourselves if we need to. We could roll up our sleeves and we can get to work right now. And I think that's really been the story of the Afrikaners is we'll do it ourselves. Fine. We'll do it ourselves. We don't need you.
Yes.
Just leave us alone. Yeah. We'll do it ourselves. And I think that's the spirit that we want to bring to the club as well, which is we're not going to wait for anybody. No one's here to save us. No one's coming. There's no light at the end of the road unless we build the road ourselves, right? So we need to build, we need to get involved, and we need to be proactive in our own future. So there's a kinship there that can't be denied. It just can't be denied.
So at CPAC here, everyone I speak with watched that meeting in the White House. and everyone has opinions about it. And obviously I have strong opinions, but I'm curious to hear what your view was about what happened in the White House. What do you think with obviously with President Trump and President Ramaphosa and their delegations?
It couldn't have been better. He planned it perfectly. Yeah. It was cinematic, the whole thing. And I think the fact that it became a meme, it was like, turn down the lights, right? I got something to show you. It brought more light to the issue. And by turning down the lights, they brought more light to what's going on in South Africa. But he embarrassed him. He just totally embarrassed him. And when you're denying a genocide, which is just it's just so ironic that they're sitting there, they're like, no, this isn't happening. This is not real. Don't believe your lying eyes, right? When you have a president in there that's willing to say, President Trump, that's willing to say, no, you're going to watch it. I'm going to play it for you in real time so you can see what's going on. And then when the row of crosses, that I think was the most powerful part. Yeah. When President Trump was like, how much was it for every one cross? It was 10 deaths, I believe.
Yeah, I think it was a cross for person, but there were several thousand. It was several thousand crosses, yeah.
And he's turning to him and he's like, look at that. And he's like, I've never seen this before.
Yeah. He said, where is that? And then Trump said, it's in South Africa.
He's either stupid, which he very well might be stupid, or B, you're lying. Yeah. Either way, it's both insidious, and you should not be the leader of a country. Trump just embarrassed him. He straight up embarrassed him. And the president of South Africa, in an interview afterward, they were like, what did you think? He's like, I thought I was sitting next to a very powerful president.
Yes. And there was at one of the press conferences after that meeting, someone asked him and said, but it didn't come across as if you guys were very prepared. How did you prepare for the meeting? And then he said, actually, we didn't have a lot of time to prepare for the meeting. So it's like, it's bizarre because you have a meeting with the president of the United States, and it's not just a president of the United States, it's President Trump. And yeah, actually, we didn't have time to prepare for the meeting. It's really sad, actually, to witness.
You're traveling from South Africa all the way to Washington. You didn't have a second to be like, okay, let's brief me on what might be brought up here, right? Maybe if you're actively engaging in a genocide, you would think you'd want that talking point ready to go to smooth it over. But it was just dumb. It was a dumb move. I don't understand why. Just own up to it. Yeah, or just do the right thing. Just be like, no, yes, this is happening, and we're going to actually do something to address it. I think people would have a lot more respect for him if he just owned up to it.
Because the genocidal rhetoric is there's no way that you can deny that it's happening. Of course, some people are trying to do that, which is unfortunate. And so something else I want to ask you is we have this frustration in South Africa, or not frustration, this weird situation where we have this bizarre false dichotomy when talking about politics. Yeah. It's as if a lot of people in South Africa, fortunately not everyone, can only think of political systems as one of two options. Yeah. So in South Africa, in our context, it's only apartheid or the ANC government. And we get that a lot is when we say, well, actually, this is a problem. We need to rethink the political system, and we need to think about a way that would be more sustainable. The accusation is always from the left. Oh, okay, you guys want the apartheid system back. And what's strange now, and it links back to the point you made earlier about these slogans or these accusations, it's racism and it's authoritarian and it's Nazi, and now in our context, it's apartheid always, is what they're doing now is when you say, for example, the communities that live in South Africa should have self-governance, people say that's apartheid. So we're now at the point where a nation governing itself is an application of the apartheid system, and if that's true, that effectively means that the world throughout the ages has been based on apartheid.
Yeah.
And so it's not good for their own strategy to just equate everything with apartheid. And I'd be keen to hear your view on it.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's very strange because, but this is the problem, is that when you have something like Orania, right? That's this group governing itself that's able to build something, to really build something. You hold a mirror up to everybody else.
Yep.
And now everybody else can see their own flaws plain in front of them. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to believe that. They want to believe that, if they got all of you out, if every white person was gone from Africa, it would be this flourishing nation. You guys are the problem, right? But then when they see that, hold on, wait a minute, maybe we might be the problem. Suddenly, everything changes. Mm-hmm. Everything changes. So it's a mirror. Every time you're successful, you're holding a mirror up. And you're saying, no, well, we could do it ourselves. And they're saying, oh, no, we can't look at this. Yeah. We can't possibly be the problem. That's number one. Number two, there was, again, there was this interesting point that you were making about the dehumanization of the Afrikaners, right? Which is what they do in the United States too, the dehumanization of anybody who isn't a person of color, whatever that means, right? And there was this, I'm forgetting what it was, but what makes you human, and it was this
Ubuntu. Ubuntu is the Zulu word for the essence of being human.
Correct. When you, and I think that kind of boils down, and correct me if I'm wrong, it boils down to this like empathy.
Yes, empathy for other people.
Correct. Yeah. To be able to put yourself in somebody else's place. They do the same thing in the United States, where they're like, white people, they can't possibly understand what it's like.
They lack humanity.
They lack humanity. Yeah. They lack empathy, right? This dehumanization makes it okay to do anything to anybody, right? You don't think twice. When you're on a farm, you don't think twice to cut the chicken's head off, right? I gotta eat.
Yeah.
I gotta eat. It's the same way that they view the Afrikaners. It's the same way that they view anybody that's not on the left in the United States. It's like, oh no, this is what's in the way. If we get rid of this, it's done. And the funny thing is, it's in their self-interest, and this is why the leaders do what they do. It's in their self-interest to keep this scapegoat there always, because then they could blame every problem that's ever happened on this group. So it's interesting. The Afrikaners have a culture, they have a language, they have everything that it takes to become a nation. And the fact that they're calling it apartheid is just ridiculous. It's so stupid. They are actively engaging in a reverse apartheid with their taxes on the farmers. They're engaging in a reverse apartheid when they put their thumb literally on this community. It just doesn't make any sense. It's not in their self-interest. It's not in anybody's self-interest, but they need somebody to blame. Yeah. And you'll always be there to blame.
But it's a global thing with the left is applying the thing that they claim to be against.
Exactly.
Like the argument of authoritarianism or fascism or whatever. When you look at what they're actually doing, that's exactly that. Yeah. So I want to circle back before we close. Circle back to the club. The New York Young Republican Club. You recently took over last night, as we're recording this now. Last night there was an event here in Budapest with the Center for Fundamental Rights that hosts CPAC. And there was a sort of a changing of the guard, you could say symbolically, with you and Gavin. And you spoke there as the new president. So what do you foresee for the club? Do you want to make some changes? Do you want to continue on certain things? What could one expect from the New York Young Republican Club?
I think that Gavin left us this beautiful base to work with. He's left us a well-oiled machine, and obviously he's still here as our chairman. And I go to him for advice all the time because he's just a wealth of knowledge. And now with him in the Trump administration, he's a wealth of knowledge and somebody who I think truly He's got that Afrikaner spirit in him, where he's like, we'll do it ourselves. I'm gonna do it myself, right? Nobody handed Gavin anything. Whatever Gavin has, he worked for with his own two hands.
He's a force of nature. Yeah. Anyone that knows him would recognize this.
The word no doesn't exist in his vocabulary. It's outside. But in terms of what we want to do with the club now, I've been talking about the 3 C's: campaigns, culture, and community. So
that's great.
Campaigns, we're going to make sure we get more Republicans elected. We have a huge primary election coming up. The establishment in New York, the Republican establishment, doesn't like us very much. I would say they hate us more than the left does, really. They've done more to try to stymie the club and our careers and everything. They've tried to get people fired. I mean, really disgusting things for jobs outside of politics. But campaigns, we want to make sure we're getting more Republicans elected. We have a city councilwoman, Ina Vernikoff, that's up for re-election, and the establishment is running a rhino against her. This guy was a communist, then he became a Democrat, then he became a Republican. So just very funny stuff. So we're gonna really win that, and I think we're gonna win that big. Culture, we live in the largest media market in the world. So we want to make sure that we have young Republicans that are ready to go on TV. They're camera ready. They know what they're going to talk about.
You've been doing a lot of TV interviews. I saw.
I've been doing a lot of them. We just want to make sure that we have a group of people that are ready to change culture. Influencers, people to show a counterculture against the degeneracy that's going on in New York. And then lastly, community, building a community where people can say, yes, I'm a Republican. Be open about it, be proud about it. And I think in New York, it's really changed. Democrat has now become a dirty word. And I think Republican is now, it's cool, it's counterculture, it's punk.
It's anti-establishment.
It's anti-establishment, exactly. So those are the 3 things that I want to do, and I just want to grow the club to even bigger heights. I think this club the sky's the limit with this club, and making sure we have international connections, eventually coming to South Africa to see you guys. Hopefully the president of South Africa doesn't see this interview.
Well, we'd love to have you in South Africa. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'd love to come.
Tell me, I also want to ask you this about the MAGA movement. Yes. What's this? Because there's something magical or mysterious about the MAGA movement. In a certain sense, the MAGA movement is not quite the Republican Party. It's something else. How do we make sense of the MAGA movement?
You can only make sense of the MAGA movement if you know the history of the Republican Party. The Bush Republicans, the Cheney Republicans, this group of establishment neocons, essentially. And for people that don't know what neocons are, these are, you could call them socially liberal, fiscally conservative war hawks that are trying to nation build throughout the world. And these are the same jokers that brought you the war in Iraq and the wars in the Middle East, right? So you can only understand the MAGA movement if you understand those people, this establishment group. Once you understand them, you can see why Trump came out, because the majority of the Republican Party are socially conservative, right? Economic populists and nationalists. That's what the current group of the Republican Party, the big tent of the Republican Party is. So Trump comes out of nowhere in 2016, and he comes on stage and he says the things that everybody is thinking. We're not going to nation build throughout the world when we have to focus on our own country, right? No, we're not. Yeah, we're not going to allow the denigration of our culture and societal collapse. We're going to fight back. And this is something that Gavin talked about in his speech yesterday. We don't have to be passive observers in this cultural revolution that the left is waging. We can actually fight. We can get involved. We can offer an alternative. It's like, no, maybe you don't want to be a blue-haired lesbian. Maybe you want to have a family. Maybe you want to have children. Maybe we want to go to church. Maybe these are things we want to do and uplift us instead of doing culturally degenerate things that will eventually lead to A, an early grave, or B, a deep depression. So the MAGA movement comes out in 2016 and says, no, we're going to worry about our nation first. We're going to care about our culture. We are a people with a culture, a language, and borders. And you look at George Bush, his rhetoric is the complete opposite of Donald Trump's. He talks he was talking about isolationism and immigrants, saying like, oh, we're going to bring everybody into the country, right? We're going to talk to everybody in the world about everything and give them as much money as they want. President Trump is the one that comes in and says no. So this new Republican Party is a national populist party. It is a party that is dedicated to popular conservative reforms and putting its own nation first. And I think that's why places like Hungary love us, because they're doing the same thing. Every country should be for its own citizens first. After that, everybody else can come.
Yeah. Well, Stefano, thank you. It's great speaking with you, and we look forward to watching your journey with the Young Republicans.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
If you support this initiative and you want to contribute to the work that we are doing, I want to encourage you to click on the link in the description and to sign up as a contributor.